Hey guys, welcome back to another episode of the Mind Muscle Connection podcast. Today is a solo episode and I have a topic I want to dive into. But before I dive into that, I just have a few ways you can help support the podcast. First, if you have found this podcast to be helpful in any way, if you could leave a rating and review, and that will help more people find this podcast. Next, follow me on Instagram, Jeff, HOEHN_. That's where I'm most active on social media and I post the most content, and it's the easiest place to get a hold of me if you have any questions. And then lastly, I have my one-on-one online coaching service. And with that, I help you lose body fat and build muscle with my strategic dieting and training methods. We look at things like your lifestyle and biofeedback to individualize your training and nutrition program to you and your specific needs. There's also at least 1 to 2 bottlenecks that we figure out that are keeping you from seeing the results you want to see. So I have a good example here of something that happened with a client recently. When he first signed up, he had told me that he would get all or nothing with things, right? And so I knew that was going to be something that, we needed to work on. Well, he was staying super consistent with everything. And then all of a sudden he kind of tweaked his back a little bit. And then he also had a couple things pop up outside that were pretty stressful for him. Right. And so he fell back into this all or nothing mindset in this past week. Right. And so we ended up having our coaching call yesterday, and we just kind of chatted about, hey, what can we do differently? What did you learn from this? He had a couple takeaways from it, but the big thing was that we decided was, hey, when this happens, like, we just need to learn to dial things back. We don't have to be perfect with everything. Right. So it's like, if you have a lot of stuff coming up, communicate that to me, and then we can come up with a game plan for, hey, here's your big rocks that you need to focus on this week. Because again, this is a common thing I see with people, is that they get all or nothing with it. And then it's like, they have something stressful come up and they're like, you know what, I'm done. I'm not dealing with this. I can't do it all. So I'm not going to do any of it. And I think part of it just comes down to, they're not sure what things are really going to move the needle for them. And instead of thinking like, I have to be 100% perfect with it. So for this particular client, it's not necessarily it's not the methods. It's not the thing. It's that bottleneck for him is that all or nothing mindset. And again, that's going to keep holding him back unless we learn how to work on that specific problem. Right. And so that was just an example I wanted to bring up. Obviously we just chatted, so I don't know how this is going to turn out, but again, figuring that out and knowing that, hey, next time this pops up, one of the things we want to do is communicate that to me, and we can come up with a good game plan there. So again, if you're interested in the online coaching, you can find the link in the show notes or reach out to me on Instagram, and we can go from there. So what I want to go over today is a topic. So the topic is why you're eating 1,500 calories, and you can insert any low calorie amount here. It doesn't have to be 1,500 calories and not losing weight, right? So, have you tracked a calorie amount that should get you to lose weight, but it isn't working? This is a common problem I see in here every single day. Again, and I think this gets people to say, oh, hey, calorie tracking doesn't work. It's a myth. Calories, I've tracked my calories, it doesn't work. But there's some reasons why this happens, right? So I'm going to go over the biggest reasons why this may be, why you're eating these low, on paper, you're aiming for this low calorie amount, but you're not seeing weight loss or whatever you want to see, right? And this is based on my experience coaching and just staying up to date on the research. So I'm going to combine a few of these things here. So the first reason is you are tracking 1,500 calories. And again, you can insert any calorie amount here. It doesn't have to be 1,500, but just for a number, I'm going to say 1,500, but you're actually eating more. Okay. So you're actually consuming more calories. Yes, you're tracking 1,500 in your tracker, MyFitnessPal, whatever you use, but body doesn't care what MyFitnessPal says, right? It's only going to know what you actually give it, right? And so this can be from forgetting, right? So you might be eating more calories because you're just forgetting about things that you didn't put in that day. Or tracking skill, right? You might not understand how to track accurately. There might be an error in the number of calories that are actually in the food. Okay. And we'll talk about each one of these. So tracking is a skill, and like any skill, it takes time to develop. So you're not just going to jump in and be best tracker. Like there's a skill component to it, and you're probably going to be missing out on certain things in the beginning. And there's also research to back up that people can be off by up to 1,000 calories when tracking. And so they did research on this, and that, people were like, hey, I'm eating, I think it was like 1,200 calories or something like that. And they're like, I'm not losing weight. And so they looked to see what they were actually eating. They used doubly labeled water. And this is a method that can see, that can look at your energy expenditure and energy intake, and it can give you an idea. And they were, actually consuming, some people, like on average, I think it was like up to double, right? Like some of these people were eating upwards of like 2,500 calories. So they were off by, thousands of 1,000 calories. Again, some people were probably a little bit closer, but again, there were people that were off by up to 1,000 calories. We have that. And again, the research shows that specifically that people do underestimate, and they overestimate physical activity as well too. But they even did this in professionals like dietitians, and they found that even professionals like dietitians can be off by a couple hundred calories when tracking, right? And that's no big deal. Those are people that are trained in that and know they have a good understanding of food, at least better than they, obviously they did the schooling, right? They have the knowledge and they understand. Now, obviously, do they know how to track calories? Not necessarily, but they have a good idea. Like they're professionals in the industry, right? So they have a good idea there, and they're even missing out on this by a couple hundred calories. So you could imagine what this would be in somebody who's new to tracking. They have really no understanding of nutrition whatsoever and how far off they could be. People are also more likely to omit foods that they deem quote unquote unhealthy. Okay. So not only do you have these issues of tracking skill, you have these issues of calories being off on what it says, but then, to top it off, people are they're more likely to omit those tasty foods, right? This is funny because, I'll see this with clients where it's like, oh, I had a terrible week nutrition wise. And then you look at their tracker, like the tracker sheet of how many calories they had. And it was like, but everything was on, like, your calories were in check. And again, it just comes down to, people are just more likely to omit those things. Now, the problem with this is that these are the foods that are typically going to add up quickly from a calorie standpoint. So if you're somebody that, you're like, oh, that's bad, I don't want to put that down because I don't want to, like, kind of face the truth, basically, you're really doing yourself a disservice there. I mean, you're almost better not tracking, because here's the thing, like, if you're just going to track your, quote unquote healthy foods, it's like, those are foods that, yeah, I mean, you're going to get a general idea of what you're eating per day, but those aren't the foods that are going to, like, move that needle, at least in any substantial way. The foods that are going to do that are going to be these tastier foods that you are more likely to omit. So it's really important that you still put those in there, because you're really going to, like I said, you're going to be doing yourself a disservice, because these foods that, again, you're more likely to omit are going to be the ones that those calories are going to add up quickly. And, if you're off by a couple serving sizes, now that's, hey, you're just tracking all your healthy foods, and then you had maybe a couple serving sizes of something that was quote unquote unhealthy, and now you're missing out on potentially 500 calories or more, which is going to be the difference in you maintaining weight and losing weight. And saying this, sometimes people can just forget snacks or foods they grazed on throughout the day. I think that part of this is also people just forget about it, right? There's probably a little bit of mindlessness that goes into it that is causing you to not log things. So maybe you're at work and there's food in like a bowl laying around, and you just kind of grab a couple handfuls throughout the day, and you just, you forgot about it. It wasn't, you just couldn't remember. But also, I think certain like condiments and add-ons and meals, I think people forget to add in as well too. So this underreporting is from, again, lack of skill, but also purposely doing it. People, again, are going to be more likely to omit tasty foods, the ones that are going to add up, but people do just forget, and that's going to be part of the process. Now, and the other thing I mentioned on this was like the amount of calories that are in, like, if a package says it has X amount of calories, that can be off by up to 20% plus or minus what is on the food label. Again, when they're making these foods, they're not, I'm sure there's a way that they make these foods that, they can, mass produce them. And so there's probably going to be a little bit of discrepancy in terms of like what exactly is the serving size in each one, right? So it's like they allow for this air of 20% up or down. So it's like, if something says it has 100 calories, it could have 80 or it could have 120. Now, obviously, the more calories that are in it, the bigger that discrepancy could be, right? And then obviously you do that multiple times throughout the day, and this is where things can start to add up. So if you're at say you're at 1,500 calories, whatever it may be, and you're not seeing things trend down as you would like, chances are you are eating more calories than you think. Okay. And again, this could be on accident, could be on purpose, could just be from lack of skill, but chances are you're eating more calories and or moving less than what you think you are. In this scenario, my course of action with clients is to teach them how to be more accurate with tracking. Okay. So we'll look through their food log. Hey, I noticed that you said you had, like X amount of servings for this food. This is a food that's commonly that people underestimate how many servings they have. Is this, what does this look like, right? So you can just dive into it a little bit more. You're not like calling them out or anything, but just diving into it a little bit more, looking over that, making sure the serving sizes are correct. Also, making them aware of, hey, like, just because you didn't track this food doesn't mean that those calories, like, your body's still going to utilize that energy in some way. And so, again, explaining to them how everything you eat, it is going to play a role in energy balance and whatnot. And so you have to understand that, right? So it comes down to, hey, looking over clients' food log, seeing where there could be some potential mistakes. If I know a client went out to eat and they say that meal was 300 calories, I'm like, hey, just so you know, probably not eating 300 calories here in this meal. It's probably a lot more than that. So again, looking over food log can be really helpful in just explaining to clients, what you might do. So like in that specific example, if somebody says they got a burger and it's like 300 calories, I'm like, okay, probably got the less lean version, right? And you probably want to add either like butter or olive oil to that. So it can, because chances are they're cooking with things that are going to make it tastier. So those are just a few things that I do there. With clients, to make sure that we get accurate with this number. So the next big reason that I see here is to why people eat. And real quick on this too. So like in this example, if somebody's eating 1,500 calories or whatever X amount of calories and they're struggling to lose weight, we'll do these things. We'll look at their food log. But from there, some people do just have to eat fewer calories than they think to lose weight. Their body's just very good at adapting to fat loss and being in a calorie deficit. And so it's just going to downregulate energy expenditure, and you have to eat way less than you think. And then if you're somebody who's small, don't have a lot of muscle mass, it's like your calories are going to get fairly low. And then you obviously, so explaining that to them, but then also, again, finding these potential discrepancies in their tracking can be super helpful. So number 2, you eat 1,500 calories, again, any calorie amount, 1 to 5 days out of the week, get super hungry, and then eat more calories on those other days. Okay. So again, if you're somebody that tracks, anywhere from like 3 to 5 days per week, and then you have like anywhere from 2 to 4 days where you don't track, that's probably your big issue there, right? So you track during the week, stay on track, then the weekend comes around, and then it's game over, right? You're going low calorie, restricting calories, maybe been in a fat loss phase for a while, hunger's higher, then you all of a sudden just kind of have free for all. And it's, these calories start to add up super quickly. Okay. Again, in this situation, clients' food choices completely change and you don't track, right? So it's like during the week, you're eating mostly nutrient dense foods, and then you don't have to track for a day. Now it's like, you know what? I don't have to track. I don't need to be accountable to this. The food choices just completely change, right? And again, that people are more likely to omit tasty foods from their food log. So even though you track during the week, you end up being at maintenance or surplus for the entire week based on what you do on those other days that you don't track. So again, we got to zoom out, and it's like if you're eating 1,400 calories when you're tracking, and then all of a sudden now you're up to like 3,000, it's like for 2 or 3 days out of the week, it's like now you're going to be closer to your maintenance for the entire week. So again, you need to be accountable on those days. This is the thing with fat loss and like fitness in general. It's just, it never quits, right? Like it's relentless. And so now that's not to say that you can't ever have enjoyment meals and you can't ever back off. But, again, if you're somebody that's going hard for 3 to 4 days and then 3 to 4 days out of the week, you're not, that's probably your big issue here. So with clients in this scenario, the best course of action is to set up strategies that get them adherent on those higher calorie days, right? So get them more adherent on those higher calorie days. So is that, hey, we're still tracking, but 2 or 3 meals out of the day, you're having, what you normally eat, and then you're going to go enjoy a meal later on, but we're still going to, have strategies in place to make sure that you don't just go crazy with it, right? I made a post a couple weeks ago about like, if you're 80% compliant to a fat loss diet, that's 5.5 days out of the week. And it's like what you do in that extra day and a half, that's the 15 to 20% that's going to determine your results. Essentially, it sucks because it's like you're spending so much time doing this, and then if you just kind of let loose on those days that you don't track or whatever it may be, I don't want to say you're going to go backwards, but it's like you're just going to be spinning your wheels. You're going to be working hard during the week, and then you're going to just kind of be in this same spot over time, and or progress is just going to be super slow. Because again, it's not like you're going to go backwards or anything. But so that's the other big thing, right? It's like you track 1,500 calories a few days out of the week, and then the rest of the time you're not tracking, and you think that it's like, well, I'm tracking, I don't know why I'm not losing weight, but it's like you're eating because again, when you eat these more calorie dense foods, you're more like those calories are going to rack up pretty quickly. So you might feel like you're eating 1,500 calories, but because the food choices you made, it's 3,000 plus calories. So that's the big thing there with that. 3, your total, and this is what I kind of talked about earlier, your total daily energy expenditure is lower than you think. This can be from genetics, poor lifestyle, adaptations, lack of muscle, etc. Okay, so what I mean by this is genetics. Some people just expend less energy than others. And I did explain that earlier. There's really nothing you can do about that. So you might just have to go lower calorie than you think in a fat loss diet. Maybe Sally did 1,500 and she lost weight. How come you can't? Well, part of it is, again, we want to look at these things that I talked about, but also her genetics might be a little bit different than yours. But there's other things that go into it besides just genetics. So poor lifestyle, right? High stress, poor stress management, that's going to alter it a little bit. Poor sleep habits, right? So, if your sleep's out of whack, for example, social jet lag. What social jet lag is, you have these days during the week where you maybe go to bed at 10, wake up at 6, and then on the weekend, you're shifting it from like 12 to 1 or 2, and then you're waking up at like 10, right? It's like you're kind of shifting that time that you sleep and wake, and that can alter your leptin levels, which is satiety hormone, and meaning that it tells your body, hey, we're full. We don't need to eat anymore. We got enough energy, and it can alter it and it can lower it. And that also plays a role in your energy expenditure too, and how many calories you burn. So not only are you going to feel less full by doing that, but you're also potentially decreasing your energy expenditure on those days as well too. So again, poor sleep habits are going to play a role in this. Again, just getting poor sleep in general. Again, high stress. It's like you're just, constantly stressed, that's going to affect things. And this can all lead to lower energy expenditures than what you'd expect to have. Again, whether you put that in a calculator or again, it just seems like it's a low calorie amount. Adaptations too, right? So our body has adaptations in place. So if you have always been someone to restrict calories and or do a lot of cardio, your body has just adapted to a lower energy state. Okay. So it's just the best way I can describe this is like your phone being on low battery mode. It's just going to downregulate how much energy it's using because it's like, whoa, we're getting pretty low here. We got to chill out. So, same thing. These are the people that, they've just over exercising, cardio 6-7 days a week, 60 plus minutes. They're also getting a ton of steps, and then they're also going low calorie. You're sending that signal to your body, hey, there's not a lot of energy around. I need to expend a lot of energy. So your body's like, okay, we heard that. So now we're going to downregulate how much energy we're going to expend. So it's like part of this is a self-doing for some people. Now, the good news is that you can reverse this. You can reverse that adaptation, right? So if you get out of that state, again, that's going to take some time to do. And obviously that's going to be that's for some people, that's going to be super uncomfortable to be like, hey, you got to eat a little bit more. You got to move a little bit less. You got to do a little bit less cardio. For some people, that's just really hard to do. But you can reverse this. And depending on how long this has gone on, it may take some time. So if you did this like one time, okay, you're fine. We just got to get you eating a little bit more and getting you to move a little bit less. But somebody that's done this for years on end, this might take some time. It's not, you probably have some other dysfunction going on elsewhere, right? Whether that be like gut health, just low energy, but there's probably some other things going on that's now showing up as other symptoms because of these adaptations. So lack of muscle, doing all these things above may lead to a lack of muscle on your body. And, I think there's this thought of like, if you add muscle, you're just like metabolism's going to go through the roof. That's not the case, right? It's not going to magically speed up your metabolism, but I just can't imagine there are many people who have a good amount of muscle and are relatively skilled in tracking that have trouble cutting weight on less than like 18 to 2,000 calories for men. So like if you're a male and you're under 1,800 calories and you're struggling to lose weight, it's like, okay, either tracking's off or you just don't have very much muscle, because I just can't imagine that. Again, there's going to be these genetic outliers, but most people, if you have a good amount of muscle mass, you're decent at tracking. As a male, anything under 18 to 2,000 calories, something's going on there. And then for women, I think anything under 15 to 1,700, I should probably put that closer to like 14 to 1,600 because it really is size dependent. But again, if you're somebody that is shorter, but you do have a good amount of muscle mass, I just think that it would be really tough for you to drop weight on anything under 1,400. Now, again, it could happen, but so what I'm saying here is it's important that you spend some time building your body up and building muscle, because I think that really does, again, it doesn't directly increase your metabolism, but like I said, it's just, for whatever reason, it just makes everything a little bit more efficient. So for clients in this scenario, our best course of action is to take some time away from trying to get leaner or just skinnier, right? Because again, that's what got you in that place. And if you keep doing that, doing the same thing over and over again, isn't going to get you anywhere without results, isn't going to get you anywhere closer. So those are the things, right? So if you're in this position and you feel like you are kind of beating your head against the wall here and you're eating low calorie, one of these things are off, and hopefully it was helpful for you to figure out what you need to do in this situation. Again, this is what I work on with a lot of clients. And I think the big thing comes down to the tracking and then just getting them consistent during the week. And then obviously taking that time to get them out of that low energy state. Again, that's obviously not the case for people who are like overweight. For that person, they definitely need to drop some body fat, and it probably comes down to the tracking part and the adherence side of things. But there's people that, again, have been on the other side of the equation where they're leaner. They're not like, you're not like overweight, but you just don't have a great look. And again, you've always been like low calorie, trying to do a ton of cardio, but things aren't moving. For you, that's where number 3 is probably the biggest thing, and taking some time away from fat loss dieting. So hopefully that was helpful. Let me know if you guys have any questions on this topic, and I will chat with you next time.